Thank you again for having us. Let me start sharing my screen and dive into the topic. So Plannerly. Plannerly is the platform that I'm representing and introducing you today. As the title says in big, the headline is the BIM management platform. That's true. We started out as being the BIM management platform about 7 years ago now. So we still consider ourselves as a startup. Myself, I'm an architect, but used to be running services teams and doing building information modeling and modeling in general for lots of our customers all around the world. So that's in the past, that's the history. But I think it's really relevant and important because that's how we learned what differentiates a successful project from a project failure. And that was eventually something that grew into the BIM management platform that Plannerly is today. In the meantime, ISO 19650 as the international standard was also introduced. And you have to know that Plannerly is the one platform that is fully supporting the implementation and helping customers to stay compliant with ISO 19650. Plus, our motto is to make it as simple as possible, because we know that implementing new tools, implementing technology, implementing methods and standards can be challenging on a project, but especially in an organization. So our motto is to keep it as simple as possible, and that's what we are helping our customers with. So much that actually, if you would be interested, and if your company was interested in getting ISO 19650 audit, we can make them ready in just 60 days. So that's quite an achievement to be ready for an ISO 19650 audit in 60 days. The way I'm planning to start or do this introduction and presentation is to stay on the website for the first 15 minutes or so. And I'm going to show you around because there is much more to show you than what I can talk about in 1 hour. So let me do that first. An introduction in just some images, and then we jump into the platform and I show you around in details. And in the end, expecting to have questions and answers. So you can start putting in your questions already, but in the end, we can discuss them. I feel that someone should be muted. So, thank you. I didn't find the mute button. Anyway, thanks. So start with resources. So as I mentioned, there is much more on our website than what I can cover in one hour, starting with ISO 19650, of course. ISO 19650 is the beautiful international standard that helps us coming on the same page and making sure that projects are going to be executed in an organized way. It also creates huge opportunities for us as individuals and professionals, because being ISO 19650 certified and following the standard also opens the doors for hiring and making ourselves more valuable. So ISO 19650, to start with that, defines the role of an information manager who has to follow through the planning and execution and closing phases of the project. We have lots of introduction and training material about ISO 19650, so please go to resources, and under resources, I opened it already, you will find the ISO 19650 tile, and that's what will show you ISO 19650 explained and how to get ready for an ISO audit. If I just click on that real quick, it brings up a couple of short videos. So again, we are trying to be as effective as possible, and we are introducing the topic in videos, but these videos are going to be targeted in short videos about explaining ISO 19650 and the different steps that it describes. If I scroll down a little bit, what I'm looking for really is a process chart that's on the bottom of the page, because ISO, again, is a beautiful standard that aligns all the companies and professionals all around the world and assures that we are going to follow the same process steps, but it is really also overwhelming to sometimes to read it and implement it and understand it. So with our mission to simplify BIM management, that's also something that we are focusing on, simplifying ISO 19650 implementation. And that's something that you can see on the screen. So ISO 19650 Part 2 describes 8 steps that we have to go through and introduces new terms and roles as well. So it starts with the appointing party. That's typically a customer, the client, the one who is paying the bills, who is building a facility, let's say. Then we have lead appointed parties. They are the key companies, teams, resources who are developing the project. So you can think about architects, you can think about general contractors, for example. And then there is the appointed parties. There are the appointed parties who are contributing, and eventually they are the ones who are detailing out and really developing the details of the project. They work together in task teams, together with the lead appointed parties and project teams to deliver the entire project. So those are the swim lanes that you can see horizontally. And then we have to go through different steps, starting with assessment. So just finding out that we have a project and somehow we have to deliver that. And that's when the appointing party will have to dedicate or appoint an information manager. It can be either an employee of the appointing party, or it can be a contracted, outsourced role. So, and that's the beautiful opportunity in front of us to become information managers and make sure that projects are following ISO 19650 and are executed successfully. Then there is the tender phase, of course, where different resources are going to be used. OIR, PIR, AIR, EIR, beautiful three-letter abbreviations. We will have lots of those. These are defining, starting with the OIR, what is the goal of the organization? What is the target? Why do they get up every morning? And what is that motivating? What is eventually making money for an organization? Of course, it's very different if you are talking about a hospital, a zoo, a casino. So different kind of motivations and goals. It has to be recorded in an OIR, an organizational information requirement document, that can be communicated to the different parties involved. A PIR is a project information requirement that defines the goals on the project. So if it's now a renovation versus a new build, of course, we have different project goals that we want to achieve. And then the AIR, the asset information requirements. We know that construction is huge in general, construction industry, AEC industry, and it's very, very costly to build a facility. However, it's even more costly. Some studies say that it's 80% of the cost that goes into the operations of a facility, and 20% goes into the construction. So it's very important that all the information about the assets is going to be recorded properly in order to support the maintenance and operational phases of a facility. Everything is going to be combined into this exchange information requirements document that is eventually the tender document that is being sent out by the appointing party. So lead appointed parties can answer that EIR, and we can a little bit later decide who to work with. So that's the tender part. And then the response part is when answering the EIR, answering the exchange information requirements questions that were asked, is resulting in a pre-appointment BIM execution plan. So that's BEP. It's called a pre-appointment BEP because there is no way to detail out everything in the contracting, in the appointment phase. That is going to come a little bit later. But then we can also start thinking about, so now we are responding some questions from the customer. So we can start thinking about risks, what kind of risks we can think about, and how we are going to address those risks. Let it be human resources, let it be technological risks, let it be process risks. We have to detail out as much as possible so we have a plan to respond to those risks when they appear. Mobilization plan, so same kind of categories. How are we going to mobilize our human resources? How we are going to mobilize our technology to be able to address the challenges? And that is going to be together the tender response. And that at that point, the appointing party, of course, is going to decide who to work with. So we are going to, that's the appointment phase, or in other terms, that's the contracting phase. And that's when lead appointed parties and their teams are going to be selected. And at that point, we go down into the details. That's why it is called the post-appointment BIM execution plan, when we can start including responsibility matrices. So who is doing what exactly? We know what the use cases are because we probably discussed that earlier as well, but we can now detail out the use cases. So we have to model differently if it's a 2D drawings creation, if it's field layout, if it's a cost estimation, if it's project scheduling. But now we can really detail out in the responsibility matrices how it is going to happen. That is together with the master information delivery plan. This is the plan how we are going to deliver our projects. The master information delivery plan is actually a collection of task information delivery plans, which is the duties, which are the tasks of the appointed parties. But again, as an architect, you probably have, for example, many different suppliers and subcontractors. You collect all their tasks together. Those are the task information delivery plans, and combine them into a master information delivery plan. And that together is going to be the contract. Then we jump into the fun part. So all that happened in this first four stages, that's prior to doing any kind of modeling, for example. We have the contract. We can jump into the mobilization phase and production phase. So we mobilize our resources. We start following the responsibility matrices and master information delivery plans that we put together. And we start creating the content, doing the design, creating the 3D models, of course. Those are going to be delivered. But it's a common problem nowadays that we deliver the models, but it's just a checkbox that it was delivered. It is really crucial to verify and validate that the deliverables, the models created, align with the contract and with all the tasks and the requirements that we defined earlier. So there is a validation, a step in the process, or actually that's not one step. This is a kind of circular throughout the different phases of the project. So we start with very early design phases, we go deeper into designing, then we go to pre-construction, construction, handover, and so on and so on. So it's always when of course content is being created and delivered, it's a quality assurance loop that we have to introduce. Once the project is completed, that's the closeout phase. So it would be a waste if we didn't learn from the process and from the project. So that's why it's really important to have the learning step as well, to gather the lessons learned and to improve the future projects that we have ahead of us. So what I walk you through is a process map, process chart of what ISO 19650 talks about. I recommend to reading the standard. It's a tough reading though. It's for me, it took a couple of sleepless nights to go through it. It talks more about it in details, but this is a high-level overview. And what you will find in Planoly actually is a seamless integration into this workflow. So you can follow through the steps in Planoly as a framework. And more importantly, or equally importantly, you will find templates for these resources for these documents. So as we jump into the application, you will find that we actually do have OIR, PIR, AIR, EIR, BEP, risk mobilization plan, and all those kind of templates in the application. So that's why Planoly is going to be a great help for you to getting started with ISO 19650. But it was very quick. Hopefully you could follow through. Let me jump back to where I started from, and that was the resources page in Planoly. When I go into the application, of course, I will keep on talking about ISO 19650 as well. One thing I want to point out, though, is the training style. You can access it here or here. Let me just click on this one. I would recommend you to check this site. Today, we have the basics level available. And it gives you a good understanding of what we do at Planoly and how to operate the application, how to get the results. As you will see, it's just a 1-hour video. Or not one video, it's actually a series of videos with some questions, with questionnaires and some assignments. But in the end, it gives you also a badge, or it gives you a completion certificate. So that's something that, again, is going to increase your value on the resource market. We have the advanced and expert level trainings coming soon. Actually, maybe interestingly enough, expert level is going to be released sooner, if I'm not mistaken, than the advanced level. So in a month's time frame or so, please check the expert level, which is hardcore, going to focus on ISO 19650. So if you want to learn more about it, please just join that course as well. Some other topics under the BIM blogs. Besides ISO 19650, so of course we talk a lot about ISO 19650 here, but there are some other cool standards. And you see the logo behind me, I don't know which direction, the Building Smart logo, which is creating the open BIM standards. That's a non-profit organization, worldwide organization that is bringing together professionals, companies, software providers, users to really find out how we are going to do BIM together. And we are members of Building Smart International, and they have beautiful standards as well. Just for your information, without trying to overwhelm you with abbreviations and lots of topics, many of the Building Smart standards are also implemented and seamlessly integrated into our application. So we talk about, for example, Building Smart Data Dictionary as a starting point. It's a combination of different dictionaries and domains and collections of information, again, developed by this community. And it is integrated into our platform. So you can start working by accessing that very good pieces of information. I'm going to show you that as well. Then there is another piece, the IDS, which is called the Information Delivery Specification. If we think about the process charts for a second, that's around here where we are detailing out exactly who has to do what. That's an information delivery specification, specifies how the information has to be delivered. And that has a human-readable format, as Building Smart defines, but also has a machine-readable format. And again, it is integrated into our application, so you can very easily, quickly produce a machine-readable IDS, which can be used in other applications. And that's the blog talking about it. For example, if you were using Graphisoft Archicad product, creating an IDS goes into Archicad and automatically creates you predefined properties that you can follow. Similarly, there is a Revit add-on, and we have a blog post about that as well somewhere. So you can use the information in Revit as well. The other way around also works. So if you want to do model checking using Solibri, for example, you can use the information delivery specification defined in Planoly, import it into Solibri, and then you have your rule sets already that you can use for quality checking purposes. Again, long story. The reason why I'm showing you this is if you are interested in anything in these topics, also including use cases and user stories, please just go to our blogs, because you will find good resources there. Similarly, at case studies, and closing my thoughts about this page, go to our recorded webinars, tips and tricks. So under webinars, for example, you will find BIM management webinar series, talking a lot about good BIM management best practices. That's about it. Pause here for a second. I just have a sip of coffee. And then what I want to do is jumping into the demo area of our landing page of our website. So still staying on the website, showing you on high level, after all, what Planoly is doing, and then jumping into the application for details. So one sec. Okay, so here again, we are creating videos. So you will find a short video in 1 minute about introducing Planoly, and a little bit longer in 25 minutes going more into the details. But I'm not going to play videos for you now, not going to bore you with that. I'm just scrolling down a little bit and show you a couple of main ideas about the application. Keep in mind that our motto is to making ISO 19650 as well as other standards and BIM management in general simple for everyone to be using, following, accessing. Different topics are being gathered into 3 modules in the application. These are the docs, scope, and verify modules. So one of the first starting points is creating agreements. To put it simple, creating, for example, an execution plan. And the background story is that, as I mentioned, we used to be BIM managers ourselves as well, but created lots of execution plans. And we had to realize that those execution plans not only were not followed necessarily, but they were not even read. So of course, it's very big problem if we have an agreement that is not being followed and read by others. Of course, that only sets us for project failure. So the number one reason why we created the docs module is to put this unstructured data. Again, historically, it used to be a copy and paste of an execution plan from another project, full with non-necessary and non-project related information, resulting in 30 pages of document that is being sent out in PDF formats, in emails, and hoping that someone would understand it and follow it. Again, practice shows that in general, typically these execution plans are not followed. So again, what we are doing here in the docs module is, instead of creating Word processing, we put the agreement creation into the cloud, so everyone has the right access to it, depending on permissions, of course. And we make it collaborative. So we break down the entire document to these document sections that you see on the screen now, and we assign them to people so we can make them accountable, responsible for creating the content and agreeing on the content of a single document section. We introduce some automation, so smart fields are reading from your database, from your project database, and automatically filling out the document with project-specific content, so you can forget about human mistakes of having non-project-based information. And then we can push these document sections through approval steps. So once we're done creating our document section, we can share it with others. So that's when we expect that they would have any feedback about the document section, about the content of it, how we are going to develop our project. And once we agreed, we can publish it. No one else is going to touch it anymore. So we have the kind of the frozen agreement, which, of course, the best if it's used online, because that's the most dynamic, accessible by everyone. But at this point, once you receive an agreement, you can, of course, print it out. And not only print it out, but we even have electronic signatures in the application. So you can get formal green light on getting started. So as you can see on the left side, you can access the templates coming from us, not only BEP, but EIR, OIR, and all the different abbreviations that I mentioned. And the best practice is that you can start with ours, of course, but then you modify these templates as you need, and then you will have your own starting points going forward. So you have your company-specific templates that can be used in your future projects. The next step is the scope. That's where we create our responsibility matrices, our task and master information delivery plans. And if we focus on content creation, on model creation, that's the main functionality, I believe, that is going to be a great help for you. So this is where we start listing on the horizontal axis the different use cases. As I mentioned earlier, you have to model differently for 2D drawing creation, for cost estimation, for coordination, and all those different kind of use cases. So that's something that you can identify. On the vertical axis, you can start listing your building components that you are expecting. Put them into groups, individual components, however it makes sense for you. You can also put it into different kind of classification structures. So structuring your work, of course, is going to be helpful going forward. And in this matrix, we can start detailing out and discussing. Again, it should be after using your templates, it should be an open discussion with your suppliers, because the end goal is to have a successful project. So it's not a top-down approach, it's a collaborative approach. But again, discussing how we are going to reach the certain purposes, certain milestones, certain use cases, who is responsible for information creation at that point. So you might see that there is an architect, there is a mechanical engineer, there is a contractor. So you can make different teams responsible for information creation. And then you can discuss the details as well. You can talk about geometrical details if you want to remember the term LOD, so you can define what are the geometrical definitions that you want to follow. You can, of course, define the information requirements. So what is that modeling property that you have to include for a certain use case in order to be able to reach the downstream process goals, and so on. So that's the responsibility matrix, made it as simple as possible. The visual nature of it, of course, helps everyone around the table to understand what the requirements are, because remember that each and every party might have a different adoption level of building information modeling. So the visual nature really helps to make sure that everyone understands what they have to receive, what they are requesting, what they have to deliver, and so on. Now, this is the part which we think about the previous term that I mentioned from Building Smart, the IDS, which is the Information Delivery Specification. This is the human-readable format of that, but with a click of a button, we will be able to create a machine-readable format as well, which can be used in other applications. Last but not least, when we are in the information creation in the modeling phase, as mentioned earlier again, you want to make sure that models meet your requirements. So they are following your modeling guidelines, your rules, your expectations. And that's something that you can very easily check in the verify module. So you probably have seen BIM workstations where you have two huge screens. And today, a certain person would want to understand whether the Excel spreadsheet that they created meets the models, and they are trying to do that manually. So this is something that we automated. And of course, this very simple color code shows you if something is green, that's perfect, as expected. If something is orange, that would mean that you have some missing or wrong parameter values entered. If something is red, it would mean that the parameter is completely missing from the model. Very quick, very simple quality checking that you can perform. And the beauty is that it's not only the receiving party who can perform this quality checking. You can give access to your suppliers so they can perform this automated quality checking themselves very quickly. So they can even fix any kind of issues that they might created before posting the models for your use. So it's streamlining the process, reducing the back and forth communication, the issue tracking, because again, on the sending end, they can perform the quality check before issuing the models for your review. So this is the very quick introduction to Planoly. Of course, it has much more into it. So that's something that I'm going to do in the next steps. I'm pausing here for a very short second again. Maybe if there is an urgent question, just shoot and let me know. Otherwise, we can always discuss questions after the presentation as well. So you can, and maybe I would recommend to create a free account on Planoly. You also have access to our educational account, but myself, I'm going to use a free account, and there's a good reason for that. The free account is loaded with some good content that helps you going through this workflow as quickly as possible, understanding the bits and pieces of it. It has, for example, some preloaded models that you can work with to do the automated quality checking, and helps you understanding the logic behind. Then on your education account, you can start uploading your own models as well, linking to ACC to bring in your own models as well to do a quality checking. So I opened Planoly in the background already. This is what you will pretty much see when you have a free account. Actually, you can create free accounts as many as you need. So you can just click on it and create a new account as well. What you see on the screen now is on the left side, you will have your accounts listed, so you can switch in between. In one account, you see the projects space. So this is where you can start creating workspaces. Workspaces, of course, help you to structure the work that you are doing, whether it's regional, whether different project types, any kind of logic. It also helps you controlling access, so who has access to certain workspaces. And we always suggest to create a templates workspace where you start storing your templates. Thinking about a larger organization, maybe you don't want to provide access to everyone in the organization, because it would be a mess if everyone is just messing with your templates, but you would have dedicated resources working on the templates that can be used on the actual project. And then, of course, you can think about account settings, who has account administrator rights, and so on and so on. A little bit of branding depending on the subscription package that you are running. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just creating a new project, and I'm just going to call it a new project. I could be selective, finding out which modules I want to include, but I just go with all of them actually. So I'm going to create a new project with all the modules, the docs, scope, and verify modules listed on the left side. Immediately, I find myself in the docs feature set. And again, that's what we are using for creating our agreements, creating the less structured kind of documents. As you can see them, the OIRP, IR, EIR, BEP, and so on and so on. So these are the templates that you can actually access. And if you are interested, we have even more. So this is the English templates that were developed, but it has been localized to many other languages already. So you can dive into those. Plus, we have some other templates in the application as well. So you probably have heard BIM Forum or Penn State or level of accuracy. So we have templates for those as well, also in a couple of different languages. Once you start creating your own templates, you will be able to access your templates in the same way, and you can use, of course, your own resources and documents. You can open up any of these documents, look into the details, what they contain, and you can just add them to your project very quickly. So I added now an exchange information requirement. And this is the document section, and this is my document already ready for me to specify or customize it to the project needs. To start with, actually many of the information, if you decide so, is going to be filled out automatically using the smart fields. So smart fields are placeholders that we can put into the templates. And when we start using the templates on an actual project-specific information is also automatically going to be added in some cases. So you see, for example, that the project title is just copying the project name, as well as project language, standard, and so on and so on. Some other stuff you might have to fill out once, awesome project. And in every occurrence, of course, of this smart field, it is going to be filled out automatically. So if I decided to add this smart field again, which was the project description, of course, as you expect, it is going to be filled out automatically. So that's when you can forget about find and replace. You can forget about human mistakes of having non-project related information. Once you are done with editing, you can start sharing it with others. And that's when you expect that people would come in and providing you comments, questions that you can discuss in this space. Actually, we even have this activity history recorded. If it becomes, of course, a contractual document, you want to remember how you ended up with certain decisions. It is very easy to work with these document sections. So that's one thing that we believe is really important. So reorganizing them is a piece of cake. Of course, getting rid of some that you don't need, that's how you can really customize the document to project-specific needs. You can turn on and off numbering as well very easily. In general, it is going to be really a dream to create your documents like this. If I just start adding some more content into here and doing some changes, whenever I click outside of the document section, you will see that it is being automatically saved, meaning that if I look into the version history, at every point in time, you will see what kind of changes were made by whom. And of course, you can go back to earlier versions if you wanted to. Also here, you will see that you are going to stay linked to the template that you started from. So again, think about a larger organization. You have ongoing projects, but the templates might be changing during the project. You will be notified if there are changes. You can still decide if you want to incorporate those changes into your actual project or not. Working on the document section is self-explanatory. So you just click in the document section and you will have access to the basic functionalities and extended functionalities about fonts, about paragraphs, and some other cool stuff like using AI for certain functionalities, using your smart fields, your links, and also inserting images, videos, external content. And if you are interested in coding as well, you can even look into the code view and do some other cool stuff as well in the code view. Just let me think if I wanted to say something else as well. Yes, probably one more thing. If you create a new document, if you are not starting from a template, so you can always start from a template, but you can always start from scratch as well. Importing a Word document, for example. So if you happen to have some good documents already, you can import it into Plannerly, so you don't have to redo it again and again. Or you can just use AI and with a proper description about what your document should be about, you can either create an outline or just create a complete document. Of course, it's a starting point, so I wouldn't put it into contract already, but you can use it as a starting point for creating a certain specific document that you might not have a template for. That's about the docs feature set. If I just want to summarize, what we are doing is using templates to efficiently create your agreements from a generic template to a project-specific agreement as quickly as possible. Creating accountability and responsibility also increases the value of the agreement and makes sure that actually it is going to be followed. So you can hold people responsible for it. We are pushing it through a workflow, an approval workflow, also making sure that everyone can give you early feedback as much as possible. And with the approach of breaking down the document into smaller document sections, we are just making it much more effective. Of course, people wouldn't have to read an entire 30 pages document. They can focus on whatever is relevant for them. You can work on permissions, not only on the document section level, but also on a document level. You would be able to define who has access to a certain document, and maybe you want to restrict access as well. From this point on, what you could do is creating an export if you wanted to. So you can always just go here, and we have some predefined exports. So it's very quick and easy to create an export. So you can choose if you want to add a cover page. Of course, you can work on the settings, what kind of information you want to show or hide, what is the format, the output, working on text styles, cover pages, headers, footers. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but you can customize your export, of course, and then you can choose your document and just export it. Then you have your first document, first agreement created. Once it is done processing, you will be able to read it here in the browser as well, but you will also be able to download it. This is also where you would be able to start an e-signature workflow. So you could say that I need people signing this document, and it always adds a new cover page, and it just makes it more official and contractual to execute the project. Of course, that's also a best practice. If an execution plan is just an attachment to a contract, it might not be followed, but we have to elevate it on a contractual level to make sure that it is going to be actually followed. Let me jump, and I have to be conscious about time, so I think I'm still doing good, but let me jump into the scope, which is creating your detailed responsibility matrices, your task and master information delivery plans. From a certain perspective, the same logic applies here as well. So on the left side, you will find starting points, you will find the library, you will find Plenary templates that I'm going to use. We have an example project that I recommend you to look into. That's something I'm going to use as well. We have lots of different classification structures here already. So Talo 2000, Uniclass, Uniformat, Omniclass, Master Format. So lots of different classification structures. DIN, for example. The best practice is to create your own template, and you can reuse it from project to project. So that's how it's going to be customized and becomes more and more effective, of course, for you. If you look into the library, we have hundreds of predefined elements and groups of elements, focusing on vertical construction, but also some civil, some highways, railway, and water features, and so on and so on. As well as you did it the same way in the docs module, you can look into the content and you can just drop it into your actual project, and you can start developing it. So once you copied it over, you would be able to start defining who is responsible for it, what are the different use cases for a certain element, and so on. It's taking a little bit longer than expected, so let me just I wanted to refresh, but I'm not going to refresh anymore. Here you see that I added a wall foundation, so I need a wall foundation. I, by default, have one milestone. I could have more. So again, milestone is the purpose of model creation. There is another standard. I think it is now called 7817 from ISO, which is the level of information need concept. Our scope module fully grabs that and follows that concept, defining the purpose first, then defining the different elements that you need, put into any kind of classification structure if you wanted to, and then in an information container start detailing out geometrical needs, information needs, responsibilities, and so on and so on. So what we do here, you could start saying that I need, for a first use case, I need a wall foundation. With the plus and minus sign, you can control the geometrical needs. I will talk more about it. And maybe I need influence zone. Then on another use case, you might need more information. So as you can see, it couldn't be more easy to communicate, more simple to communicate your needs. And then if you click on any of these information containers, it will open up this dialog where you can detail it more out. So for example, you can assign a certain team being responsible for it. You could even make a certain person responsible for it. You can dig more into the geometrical needs. So you see that actually the plus minus signs is a combination of geometry and reliability. But with these sliders, you could be even more specific and define what is that you exactly need. As you see, everything is going to be recorded in the background. You can add a description, you can add checklist items, information requirements, which you can just browse your project library. Of course, for me now it is empty. But this is where the Building Smart Data Dictionary is also going to be helpful. So you could say that I need a material information, for example, about it. And you see that the Building Smart Data Dictionary is going to be searched. And I know that by default, I'm being linked to the IFC dictionary. So these are the entries that the IFC dictionary has. So if I wanted to say that I need base material for my foundation, I can add that. And I start requesting material information in this case. You can add external attachments and links, of course. So this is how it looks like now. If I open it up, I can see now that for milestone 1, I just need these pieces of geometry being modeled. For milestone 2, I need more information, more detailed, more geometry, and I start requesting certain pieces of information requirements as well. This is a small example. Maybe a last thought that I want to put here is about the classifications. So no classifications are visible for now, but if I go up to the view preferences, I would be able to start turning things on and off. So maybe I want to add classification codes. Maybe I want to add entity types, subtitles, for example. I can do that. If you have a large scope, you might want to collapse it. So images are beautiful, but when you are getting used to the project, maybe you just want to have this compact view so you can see more on the screen. So talking about classifications, now as I turned on the view preferences, this plus sign shows up, and I could say that this is now 8 and 10. And as you will see in this hierarchical breakdown, the lower level elements are going to inherit the classification codes, and you could start adding some extensions to it if you wanted to. It is so much happens that actually you can even start creating a folder structure and say that actually this is going to be my foundation, and the foundation would be A10, and then this is how you would reorganize maybe your classifications. So you see you can build up your classification structure nicely. Not that you have to actually, because again, we have lots of classification structures here. So I started doing something like a uniformat. Well, you will find that here, and you will be able to use these folders, not having to create yourself. Or you can also import it as a CSV file. So please download the example. It will show you how to structure your data, and you can import your CSV file as well. Very brief intro. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to delete it. And I'm going to delete it because I want to use a nicer example. And that also shows you that this is a one-time exercise. We don't want you to create scopes from scratch, of course. We want to make it as scalable, as robust, as reliable as possible, and having templates is going to help you in that. So I'm going to use a template now, an example project. And as you can see, well, I was talking about modeling components, of course, but thinking about task and master information delivery plans, you could have any kind of deliverables here and any kind of tasks, starting with, for example, appointing information manager. So someone would have to appoint an information manager. That's a task that someone is going to be responsible for. So you could add that to track it later. Or if you have any kind of requirements, like even outside of the BIM environment, lifecycle analysis, floor plans, room data sheets, whatever, you can start requesting that information in the same grid. So I'm just going to build it up very quickly now and add an architectural scope, for example. So I could investigate, but I know what it is about. So I'm just going to add the architectural scope, and whatever is included in my template is going to be brought over to my actual project. So I'm creating the list of elements, I'm creating the milestones, I'm creating the responsibilities, and everything that is defined in my template. So the architectural scope is created. You see that I have the three purposes. In an example, it's 3D coordination, cost estimation, and asset information model. You can see who is responsible for what. And if you start opening up the elements, you also start seeing more information requirements. So it's becoming more exciting than what I just showed you. So the way to read this grid is that for 3D coordination, I need a generic representation of my interior walls, and I want to know the load bearing and material nature of it. For cost estimation, I'm going to detail it out more. And I also want to learn about the acoustic rating. And for asset information model, it is detailed element. It is actually even as-built when it comes to the reliability. And I do want to know fire rating as well, but I'm just going to, load-bearing information is not relevant for me when it comes to operations. If you wanted to, you can click on it and you see more information about it. And maybe one more thing to discuss here is the values over here. So you see that acoustic rating is defined to be between 30 and 40, whatever. If you go to the I icon, you see that it's not only whatever, but it's actually a unit is decibels. So it has to be between 30 and 40 decibels. When it comes to load bearing, it has to be true or false. When it comes to material, it has to be one of the predefined values. So either brick, wood, metal, vinyl, stone, whatever. So these are information requirements that are being defined, being copied from my template as well. And they are best displayed on the bottom of the screen. So you see that here is the name of my information requirement, a description about it, and the verification rule. That's going to be exciting. So if I double click on it, you see that it is now as a number between, but if you click on it, you see that there are predefined verification rules that you can use. Text contains, starts with, ends with, and so on and so on. Boolean, comma-separated values, and the exciting one is defining a rule using AI. So if you wanted to say that, for example, I have classification, and I want this classification to be something that starts with one letter, followed by 4 digits, no longer than 5 digits, it is going to create us a regular expression. The good thing is that I don't speak regular expression. As you can see, I cannot even type properly. But AI is going to create this regular expression for me, and then this is something that can be also applied and requested. So I say I need classification, maybe for the 3D coordination. Now this is something that I'm going to start requesting. One more thing, if you are following OpenBIM standards, you might want to put, actually in that case, you want to put properties into property sets. So that's something that you can do. You see this icon, that means that it comes from the Building Smart Data Dictionary. Let me display that very quickly for you. So what if I say that I'm just going to request wall information? So I can think about the pset wall common. And now if I start adding properties, it is listing all the properties and only those properties which are part of the pset wall common. So you don't have to remember all the properties. It is going to create that for you. If the property, the information requirement is linked to the Building Smart Data Dictionary, you will see this small icon. Tags are there for making your life easier. So you would be able to filter for example, all the ceilings. These are the ceiling related requirements that you want to have. And then you can start assigning these together in the grid. So I'm going to assign these requirements to the ceilings, and you see the check marks appear. Quick assign tools on the right side. So if you want to assign teams, you can very quickly do that with the quick assign mode, as well as different statuses, scope, geometrical requirements. So I think it's enough. I'm not going to make it longer. One last thing that I want to show you is, I see I doubled the milestones at a certain point, so I might restart it very quickly. So one thing I wanted to show you is exporting an IDS. So the information delivery specification is just one click. So you could say that, let me clean up a little bit first. It would make sense to get rid of, I know what I created too. It is probably because I was not patient, right? So I stopped the process halfway through. There you go. I just have now the proper number of use cases. So if I want to export an IDS specification now, you can apply a couple of filters. So even contractually, you can say that I only want to see the ones which are certain types, which are requested by certain teams only, and to certain use cases. So a couple of filters, then selecting your output, but in the end, it is going to create your information delivery specification. If I click on it, it is a beautiful machine-readable XML format that you can download and send it to other applications as well for processing it. So again, IDS made simple. One more thing that you can do is actually creating a timeline. So you might want to not only have your grid and your requirements, but you want to represent them in a schedule, in a project plan. That's something that with the switch you can very quickly do. So you can say that these tasks would have durations, for example. You can set dependencies in between, and you can start building up your project's Gantt schedule as quickly, as easily as possible. It starts creating, of course, start dates, end dates, dependencies. And if you double click on any of these bars, the same conversation window is going to come up. So same pieces of information all across integrated in the application. Okay, I hope you are still with me. Let me quickly delete this one and add the structural scope as well. And then fast forward to the exciting topic of model checking. When you are importing, actually you would be able to set what kind of information you want to import and which milestones, but I'm just going to leave everything as default and just import everything into my scope. In the verify module, first we start with the Kanban board. So in this Kanban board, you can very easily follow the completion of different tasks, not only you, but your suppliers as well. So you can develop the project together and you can very quickly have an overview of how things are progressing. This overview can be done by status, by team member. So you will very easily see how each and every team is developing and how they are progressing. So I see now that, for example, architectural team started the roof support and they have now the approval to start with the interior walls. If I want to, and that's what I want to do, I can switch to the model view. And in this model view, in a paid account, you would be able to link up, or in your educational account as well, you can link up with ACC. So it happens that many teams are using ACC as the common data environment. So you can bring in models from there, or you can upload to Planoly, and you can do that with Revit files, with IFC, and in 70 different file formats. So that's the different kind of formats that we will be able to process here inside of Planoly. You can have multiple models and multiple model versions as well. So I only have one version of the architectural model, but you could have more of it as well. On the left side, you still see your tasks. So even if you double click on it, or if you just click on it, that's the same exact conversation window that we have all around. And we have a number of the same tasks. That's because it is displaying all the different purposes, all the different milestones of each and every task. So let me just reduce it to one use case only. Requirements for cost estimation. You see that I already have some numbers, some percentages. If I click around, I will even see a related content isolated and highlighted. So I can see, for example, ceilings, 86%, some green, some orange. So what does that mean? If I open it up, I can see that there are 29 pieces of ceiling components and 25 of them are green. It means that it's perfect. I do have the property, I do have the right property value. In 4 cases, though, it is orange, and it means that I do have the property, but the property value is wrong. So if I double check it again, I want it to have material, which is either brick, wood, metal, vinyl, stone, so one of the predefined materials. But if I check this one, it will say material, I can't find. So let me use the search function, material. It says other. So of course, that's not something that I requested. And if you see a red color, so maybe at elevator doors, you will find that a red color actually means that you don't even have the right property. So acoustic rating is missing in these cases. So that's a beautiful end result. The way to get here is just one thing, telling Planoly which element to be checked against which requirement. So this is a roof. Check it against the roofs. Don't check it against the doors because it wouldn't make any sense. So we have to set up a rule, and we can do that on a model level, saying that if the name of the element matches the name of the requirements, we are going to assign them, link them together, and check against the requirements. If you wanted to, of course, you can use a code, and maybe in that case, you would use assembly code if it's a Revit model. You could also use entity type. So you could say that it has to be an IFC wall. I don't have that property in my model. So what you see on the right side is actually the model properties. So you could say that it has to be an IFC wall, and in that case, everything is going to be linked up. Sorry, it was a wrong example. It has to be an IFC class, actually, because that's the property that holds the right information to be measured against the entity type. I hope you get the point. We can come back to it at any point in time. And also, this is when I would recommend to look into our training material as well, which further explains how the linking works. I showed you the linking on a model level. Just to conclude and add something to it, you can also do the linking on a task level as well, and that allows to be even much more specific. So you could say that I'm not going to follow the model rules for this element. I would rather say that I need everything that is on level 3, for example, and the material is, and now you see that it's searching and returns the results of my actual model properties. So whatever is gypsum on level 4, I want to link them to this task, and it seems that it found 10 elements which are considered and matches my rules, and then we can check against requirements. So I think that's the very brief, quick introduction to Planoly. A couple of things that I'm not going to detail out is our file manager. So of course, Planoly works as a clever data environment as well. So you can upload models, content, everything here as well. But instead of creating folder structures based on metadata that you can start collecting, you can start creating filter sets and making sure that everyone has the right access to the information uploaded. Also, it takes care of your naming conventions. So if you wanted to, you can say that with a certain separator, this is the string that I want to follow. What is a good example? I don't have a good example. Let me just do it quick. So now I assembled a code, and that is going to be applied to each and every element, every file uploaded, so you don't have to worry about naming convention either. So what we did, we went through the entire workflow, actually. So we went through of creating an agreement, detailing out in the response and appointment, detailing out your responsibility matrix, and then start creating models, which models have to be checked against requirements. Using the BSDD to start creating your models, but also using the IDS to push it out and start using your agreed responsibility matrices as information delivery specification for content creation. Or if you wanted to use it outside of the application for model checking, you can also do that. However, you don't have to do that because the verify module is going to be the tool for you to automate the model checking.